There we go. Okay, recording. Thank you. Thanks, Sachin. Good.
If I may, I have the same observation as Knight. I try to use yoga nidra, which is a yogic sleep when I try to fall asleep.
Yeah.
And I also kind of transition. It's 20-minute yoga nidra and then an hour of Reiki, and that's my sleep routine. And I haven't been able to 20 minutes into yoga nidra. Well, 2-3 minutes into yoga nidra. This is guided meditation, like guided meditation to calm you down. And 5-10 minutes into it, my mind's gone, like gone as in somewhere else.
Yes.
Thinking something, and then at some point I fall asleep. I don't know what time, and I don't. Maybe it's just kind of where I am, like having been out of touch, have not been doing this practice for a while. So for me to get back into it, it's taking some time, and that's sort of how I see it. I'll keep doing it.
Practicing it as you fall asleep at night? Is what you're trying to do?
Yeah. Yoga nidra is something that really helps just calm myself. So that I've been doing that, not every day, but I would say several times a month for a while, and then I stopped for about 2 months. I stopped because I was traveling and all of that. So now I'm kind of getting back to it, and I see that there's a little bit of it's a short and steep climb up on getting into the practice, and but that's sort of how I'm feeling. Just getting back into it.
Yeah, I think the exercise that I intend to give for today will probably maybe help with that a bit as well. So you'll have to report back and let me know. But yes, the exercise from last week, right, which was taking or having this ability to observe yourself, observe your thoughts, observe your actions, your body postures, all of these sorts of things, the emotions that come up, and just getting into the habit of saying that was an emotion, that was a thought, right? It belongs to the thinking center. That was a habitual posture. Yeah, those sorts of things. How did that go? Did you? I mean, share your success or frustrations or whatever. Huh?
Are you going to say something?
Go on, Hannah.
Okay, right. Yeah. What we weren't so much looking for whether a posture was habitual and what was going on in the thinking. We thought that what we were supposed to be doing was to look at how the thinking and the moving center can affect the emotion. And we found that the emotion was interfering that, but it was being interfered with a lot by the moving center. So when somebody did something, what the reaction that has been habitually caused by a similar thing would then cause an emotional reaction.
Yeah, that's a whole real emotion, doesn't it? Yeah. Everything goes, right, and clicks into this kind of predisposed behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, now let's begin with your question about personality. Okay, I want you to phrase it back to me, or Knight, you can chip into, because this was part of yours as well. But I want you to phrase it back to me, and let's work into it. I think generally, Mark, what you had asked is, what's the point, roughly, right, of the personality? Does it serve a purpose?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how we got onto it, but it ties in with ray of creation as to why humans have personality, and how historically in other groupings the personality has been regarded as not something that people should have. Yeah.
The person shouldn't have a personality. Yeah, I know. I've heard a fella say that
it's heavily been put in. Yeah. And what we were talking about is that with the individuality of humans, it must be that there is a need and a desire and from creation for a flavored response back.
Mm.
Not saying that all personality is appropriate, because obviously there's pleasant personalities and there's egotistical personalities and everything else in between. But if creation doesn't want an individual
Of course it
return
does.
back, then creation would have stopped at either the rock or the animal stage of evolution.
Of course.
Yeah, and for humans to be designed to have that permanent line connection back says that there is a need for an individual flavored response, which seems to be what personality is to do with.
It is, from a certain standpoint.
Yeah.
Let me share an analogy with you. Have you ever taken an empty bottle, and you blow in it a certain way and it goes, woo, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Everyone's done that.
Yeah.
And then it has a little bit more fluid in it and it makes a slightly different pitch, woo, right? A little less, it's deeper, and so on and so forth. This is very much akin to what personality is, from the standpoint of it has to do with a person's inner content. Now, the inner content itself would be what would be known as the essence. Okay, the amount of fluid or the kind of shape of the bottle is going to determine what that sound is that's played. The personality is the sound itself. When it gets blown into, it makes a certain noise around it. You see, that's probably one of the best analogies for what a personality is. It's the radiation of one's essence mixed with one's experience. Okay, it has a certain frequency, right? You cook a meal in a room, and you have a smell, don't you? Right? You use the term flavor, but it's the same thing, isn't it? You have a smell in the room. Now, the smell isn't the meal itself. Sorry, my camera's trying to. Is it still on me?
No, it's okay. It just
Not following anymore. It's okay. But listen, when you cook a meal, the smell isn't the meal; it's a symptom thereof. You see, the meal is the essence of it. Okay, that's the part that creation wants back, is that essence. Now, in most people, I would say the smell doesn't match what was cooked because right in the middle, one carrot in the frying pan, and it smells like bacon in the room. Now, how do you explain that? The way I would explain such a thing is that they picked up the bacon odor from everything else around them, right? And have ignored the carrot in the frying pan. Now, I say a carrot in a frying pan because most people's essence is that underdeveloped. It's so, immature. If you take a person, you stand them there, and you move all of their personality to the side, which is possible, and just deal with their essence alone, most people will act like babies, like children. They can speak, but they can't reason, they can't function, they can't articulate very well. They don't have a lot of content, you see, because this is what the personality was supposed to do. I've given the analogy before. I'll come back to this, it's okay. I've given the personality before of an egg. Okay, we've got the yellow yolk in the middle, and then you've got the white area around it, right? And then the shell, of course. You probably can't see the colors because they're not coming through very clearly, but you get the idea. Okay, this is the essence. This is the personality, which is supposed to grow the essence. So you go up through life. You start off, as a baby, a toddler, teenager, and this type of stuff. And once you pass from that teenage stage, right around 12 to 14 years old, actually, once you pass out of that, you will have acquired a great deal of personality. At least this is how it's naturally supposed to work. You will have acquired a great deal of personality. At a certain transition point, you then begin to feed off of that personality to grow the essence, you see. And so what happens, is instead of you having the albumum or the white part of the egg and the yolk in the middle, you end up with a chicken. You see, it's something else entirely. It's not just this kind of amorphous essence in a person, it becomes something. So that's the point of it. And personality, I said, it comes from experience, right? It comes from everything that isn't you, everything that your environment, your teachers, your parents, your siblings, your friends, yeah, education, everything that you go through is meant to drop bits of personality into your aura that then you're meant to reabsorb. Okay, and thus grow a very unique essence. Now, I likened the other day, I likened one's essence to like the essential oil that you get from various plants, right? It's exactly the same thing. That is their essence, by the way. Except in humans, it's quite varied, right? It would be the equivalent of comparing like your essence to my essence would be the equivalent of comparing something like mint oil to oregano oil, yeah, to lemongrass oil, to basil, to you see what I mean? Like it has all of these different flavors in there. Yeah. And eventually the reason why that experience goes to kind of create that is that when you do make a return to God in creation, you're taking that uniqueness of that essence with that experience, developing it and making a return to God. You see, I'm a firm believer that this universe is not the first. I think it is one in a succession of many universes that have appeared, disappeared, appeared, and disappeared. And my evidence for this is that it's just too damn perfect. Yeah. I mean, the way the planets orbit, the way everything in nature kind of interacts, the way, I mean, you look at the complexity of it and you got to think, okay, if God, whatever that is, the absolute, whatever you want to call it, if God is also an evolving being that bases its evolution off of our experience, which is its experience, right, in external form, then it would have been a progressive thing. Yeah. And the next universe to appear is going to be even more orderly and more intricate and more, more than this one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yep.
Right. I guess it really brings us to a couple of things. First of all, what is the point of consciousness? We're going to talk about a couple of things today. We're going to talk about our knowledge, understanding, and being, which is the triangle I just erased. We're going to talk about consciousness and the function of consciousness. We're going to talk about the levels of consciousness and levels of being and so on and so forth, right? But what's the point? Why is there consciousness in the universe? Have you worked it out?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I started into it, which is to do with how it links into personality. If you weren't conscious as to what was going on, what you're going to decide, what you will and won't get into, then what is the point in there being any kind of personality if it was just an automatic thing? Yeah. So there is a need to be conscious to be able to add to or say no to something that could affect the personality.
Now, do you really think that that's how people are, though?
No, I'm talking about by design.
By design, okay. I would agree with that.
But it comes back to what we were speaking about last week as to why people don't look at what it is that's going on in themselves, one of the aspects is, and we didn't quite touch on this, is to do with the reason, a big reason why people don't look at what is wrong, is that they haven't even had the perception that there is the ability to perceive what is wrong. So that's even one step further back than people not wanting to be aware. They just haven't got the perception that they can have a look, and that is an even more anaesthetized state than a self-conscious or decision not to look at what is going on in them.
Okay, right. So Mark, can you hear me, by the way, if I sit here?
Yeah.
Okay. If you had to identify how many levels of consciousness there are and what they and their natures, how would you respond?
Ooh.
Right? Because if you watch the video of this lesson from last year, you'll notice that I got it a bit general. I was a bit general with it. Yeah, and it seems like it's now the time to dig a bit deeper and open it up a bit more. But in answer to the question, sitting here, right now, I don't know how to start to open that up. Right. Well, there's a couple ways you could open it up. One would be with the Enneagram. Mm-hmm. You know, right? We talked about the laws. I would say, really, that there are fundamentally three states of consciousness. However, in humanity, in humankind, in the culture that we have today, there's also a fourth state which isn't natural at all. Sorry, could you say that last bit again? There's three natural states of consciousness, okay, like the triangle in the Enneagram. But in our culture, there's also a fourth state which isn't natural at all.
Yeah. Can I have a go at that, Prius?
Yeah.
Are we talking about unconscious, semi-conscious, and conscious?
Sort of.
And the fourth one, although it's hard to distinguish it from unconscious, would be asleep. Is that on the right lines? Yeah. Zombie, sleepwalking. Yeah. Right. Let's put better terms to it though, okay? Let's tie it in with the features. First of all, let's do an experiment. You'll pass this test at the end, but you probably won't right now. Everyone raise your right hand for me. Okay, good. Now put it down. Raise your left hand. Yeah, put it down. Touch your nose. Right. Which hand? Touch, it doesn't matter. Just touch your nose. Right. He's the one, isn't he? Which hand? Take it down. Right. Now, touch where your soul resides in your body. Now, tell me why everyone is stumped. She's got it right. Right? She's got it right. Yeah, a little higher, actually. It's actually a little higher. Yeah.
Close to your heart?
Close to your heart.
Nice.
Yeah. She touched one of the exit ports of it. Right. This is the other one. These are the exhaust ports of it. Right. The soul lives here, right in the center, right in your chest, right in the middle. That's where it is. Now, the wise among you will say, okay, Pierce, prove it, and I will. All right, because I'm not going to just leave you with, oh, Pierce said the soul lives right here. Be wrong, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yeah. But this is where it lives. Now, why am I going on about that? Because of consciousness. Think of it this way. The three natural levels of consciousness is consciousness in the body, right? Consciousness of the body, which in modern psychological terms would be the subconscious mind. All right, subconscious and semi-conscious, depending, because then you're talking about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, access to those, right? But the completely unconscious aspect
or subconscious aspect is things like your digestion is going on right now. Your heart is beating away. Yeah? Certain hormones are being released, and all of these things that you have no conscious awareness of whatsoever. None. Okay. Now, can you? Yes, you can. But do you need to? No, you really don't, because that's how the body was designed. It was designed to be a servant to you, to your higher faculties, so that you can engage in a work like this without having to think about keeping your heart going the whole time. You see, remember to breathe, and so on and so forth. That would be very difficult, wouldn't it? Yeah. So that would be the subconscious and semi-conscious aspects, having to do, by the way, because we talked about the moving center and instinctive center, having to do with those being two of the same thing. Right? Two halves of the same center, basically. So the moving center, well, I'll let you work it out. One is subconscious, the other is semi-conscious. Okay, you can work that out yourself. Yeah. The next one would be consciousness in the soul. Okay, that is an actual consciousness. That is an actual state of consciousness that is available to the human. Most people don't ever experience it, but another way of saying that is consciousness of the real I, consciousness of one's true I, one's true self. Yeah, as you went through this labeling experiments last week, oh, that's an emotion, that's this, that's that, that's this. There might have been a point in time when you questioned yourself and asked, what the part that's observing those things, what does it belong to? Because if it can see that that's an emotion, and if it can see that that's a thought, and if it can see that that's a moving center or body, type of response or habitual response, what is it? That's your I, ladies and gentlemen. That's your soul. That's the you of you that's able to do that. And the more you live in that aspect of yourself, the more it can grow. Okay, it's another way of saying essence. Your essence is your soul. Same word, or different words, same meaning. All right. The third state of consciousness available to the human is that of the spirit. Are you conscious of your spirit? Yeah. Can you touch it? Do you know where it lives in your body? Hmm? Yeah. Well, you can't touch it, but can you vector it?
Is it the spine?
Huh?
Is it the spine?
No, the spine is a power source for it, though. Right? Just like the solar plexus and throat are entry ports to the soul, the spine is what powers it. This is where you get this gold rod aspect, right? Of religious essences, the gold rod aspect, the spine powering the pineal gland, right? I said you can vector it because you can't touch the center of your head, but that's where your spirit resides. See? All right. Those are the three. Now, the abnormal one is the zombie state that most people walk around in all day long, where we say, I'm awake, right? Stretch in the morning and you wake up and I'm awake for the day. It's probably not true for most of us. It's probably not true. You're probably not awake, because if you were awake, you would at the very least be residing in your soul. And if you're very awake, you'd be residing in your spirit. Now, another way of saying residing in your spirit, by the way, is consciousness of the divine. You remember, I said the spirit is the same for everyone. The soul is different in each person. All right? Souls are astrological. The spirit is solar. Probably the wrong word, isn't it? Solar should be spirit, or the spirit or system. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But you see, this this aspect of consciousness that people go through, where they think they're awake, where they make breakfast, they chit chat with their family, they go to work, drive an automobile, all of these types of things is an abnormal state of consciousness because it's not centered in something that's real. That would be consciousness in the personality. Consciousness in the albumen, the white of the egg. And the fundamental feature of that type of consciousness is what are called roles. Okay, something plays out. You touch a piece of the personality and it cannot help but playing out. Yeah, and then its job, once it plays out, is to locate the next bit of personality that is like it or connected to it, and it says, okay, your turn, right? And then that bit of personality plays out, and it gets to the end of its little act, and then it looks around for the closest one and goes, your turn, right? And this is how we live out our days. None of that is real. All of that is illusory, okay? That's not how the human was meant to go on. Yeah? You're meant to reside here. Now, let's talk about the difference between knowledge and understanding. Who has a clear concept of what that difference is? Knowledge and understanding. Sachin, you had a pretty good start at it back in, I think it was February of last year.
I'm going to shut up and just listen if that's
Oh,
okay.
yeah, okay. You said that February of last year, too. Right in the same meeting. Interesting. Hilarious. Okay. Go back and watch it. You did. And then you didn't. So I expect, let's see if that role plays out, right? Who else wants to have a go?
I'll have a go.
Yeah.
Knowledge has the, I could be right or wrong with this, but it has the feel of, regardless of the level of knowledge, and there must be different levels of knowledge, sort of slightly
Different
sterile
sources.
in
Sources.
slightly more sterile in nature.
Hmm.
Understanding, and I apologize for old references here. If you turn the word around, you've got stand under.
Yeah.
Where the implication is you are underneath something that is washing over you or emanating through you, and therefore you've got much more of you've got more than knowledge. You've got knowing. You've got being with it or under the protection and emanation of something.
It's a domain, isn't it? It's a domain that you stand under.
A domain, yeah.
Yeah, when you have domain. Yeah.
Yes.
When you have right. Here's the difference. Just very, very, very basic difference between the two. It has to do with what you can do with it. Knowledge you can repeat to others. You can go read a book on how to fly an airplane, right? You can read all of the instruction manuals that were ever written on how to fly an airplane or helicopter or whatever. But until you actually do it, you don't have an understanding of it. You could probably even give lectures on how to fly an airplane if you read enough books on it without ever having done it. Yeah? And you could transmit that knowledge to other people. So you see, knowledge is very generic from that standpoint. It is little packets that just get bottled up and passed around. Okay. Understanding is different. Understanding is what you can do with it. I mean, would you trust yourself, honestly, would you trust yourself to read a very complete book on how to fly an airplane? Would you trust yourself then getting in an airplane and just getting on with it, right? I understand this. I got this. Yeah. You'd probably crash more than likely. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. That's the difference.
I think Sam would.
What's required for understanding? Here we get into something a bit more esoteric. What is predicated on actually understanding something? It has to do with that third thing that I wrote on the board. It's being. It's your level of being. But what does that really mean?
Would it be letting your complex have the experience of it rather than just up here.
It's part of it. Right? See, we live in kind of a crazy society, don't we? Where everyone thinks that they are just as capable as everyone else in everything. Right? If one person can do it, everyone can do it. Or everyone assumes they can do it. And while there is a condition in which that's true, it's generally not true. Yeah. How do I explain this? As you are, you can only contain so much. The key words in that being as you are. Okay, you and I, right? We could sit down here in this very room and have an 8-hour conversation. Now, what do you suppose you would take out of that? Would you then be able to go, pardon me, would you be able to go to another and relay the entire content, the entire depth? Would you be able to summon and generate the essences that came about as we had that kind of conversation? Right? Would you be able to do that? Or would it be a reflection of that conversation based on what you could contain from it?
Reflection.
Yeah. Right. So it would be a diminished amount of it. You see? And actually, it happens at all levels, right? Because some essence attends, yeah, in the room. And I take out of that essence what I'm able to take out of it, but it's not, I don't get the whole thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Think of it like a sponge. You squeeze out a sponge, you dip it into a bucket of water, and you expand it, and it's only going to hold as much water as it's able to because of its size. Yeah? If you want more water, what do you have to do? You have to get a bigger sponge, don't you? Yeah? Then dunk it in, let it see how much it can contain. Yeah, this is even in the Bible. I don't remember which chapter, which verse, but Yeshua, for the sake of you, Mark, yeah, says to says to his disciples, "I have a lot to teach, but you can't contain it."
Yeah.
Right? Same thing. It has to do with one's level of being, and so really, this work is about 3 things. It's about knowledge. In other words, you need to at least be exposed to the ideas. It's about understanding, which is only what you can do with it. You know, knowledge. I mean, I have what? How many of those binders do we have full of archives? 30, 40, 50, 30, 30 or 40 binders, right? I mean, it fills up bookshelves of archives. Now, how much do you think you would get if I just started, page 1, right? And just read through all 40 of those? Yeah, you wouldn't be able to. Yeah, you wouldn't contain it, right? But let me put it this way, someone did. The man who wrote it obviously did, or he wouldn't have been able to write it. You see, so we're talking about levels of being. You can do something with it when you have an understanding. Knowledge, I can just spout it at you all day long, or you can go read about it all day long, and it's just packets of bits of information and that you can't do anything with. Okay, are we clear on that? Now, the good news is, going back to this diagram here of the egg, you have an immense amount of capacity that you're unaware of. Your level of being can be drawn in from that. You can expand your level of being. I mean, you take a seed, a little carrot seed or something, and you look at it. If you didn't know any better, you would never suspect that would become a carrot, would you? Right? It's just a little speck of something, isn't it? It's the same thing with you. You see, with the right environment, with the right ecology, with the right knowledge, you can then expand your being if you go through the process correctly. If you don't stay an egg and you actually become a chicken or whatever. Some people would take offense to that. I'm not a chicken. Yeah, but if you expand yourself, you can contain more. Okay, so being, that level of being, this is what the work is about. Here's some knowledge. You go home and practice it. That's your understanding. You use that against your personality to increase your level of being or widen your level of being. You come back, you get more knowledge. Now you have the capability of having greater understanding because of that, and you expand again. It's this three-way triangle, all right? But the state of consciousness known as waking sleep, this day-to-day type of thing that we go through, is never going to cut it because it's just personality roles playing out. One of the most important takeaways that I hope you got from last week's meeting is the necessity to be completely honest with yourself about your observations. Yeah, there's certain things that we notice about ourselves that we're like, oh, holy Christ, am I really like that? Yeah. Do I really look like that? Do I really talk like that? Do I really say those things? Do I, yeah, you understand? It's important to face those things because personality cannot live in that state of conflict with itself. You see, once you begin to look at those aspects of personality, I mean, take your entirety of school as an example. Most people who have gone to college can speak a great deal of knowledge about what they learned, right? They can talk about, you know, the various literature that they were exposed to, the various classes, right? They can talk about the history of things. They can talk about, but they don't understand it because they didn't live it. You see, there's no understanding there. That's personality. Personality has to be deconstructed. You really, at some point in time, have to ask yourself, is this real or not? And I'll tell you, 90% probably of what you've actually learned or think you've learned in life isn't actually real. Did you know that? Have you ever suspected such a thing?
Really, in what context?
Here's the evidence of it. We think we're so advanced, don't we? Right? We live in this technological age and, you know, we know so much. Well, rewind about 100 years ago and just pick up a book on anything, a book on physics, a book on chemistry, a book on the solar system, right? Rewind another 100 years, pick up another book on that, and realize that every generation, every epoch, every era thinks they've got it, thinks they've figured it out. Imagine what a laughing stock you would be if you went back in time 600 years and tried to explain, or 7 or 1,000 years or whatever, tried to explain to a generation that lived then that the Earth orbits around the sun, and the sun is a, you know, minuscule, or the solar system is just a remote corner of the Milky Way galaxy, which is just a tiny speck of dust in a much larger universe. Yeah, you'd be treated like Galileo, wouldn't you? Right? He had a bit of understanding, didn't he? Look where it got him, you see. So yeah, the evidence would suggest that 90+%, maybe 100% of everything you've learned in school is probably wrong. Yeah? It's arrogance that suggests that it's not. That's all. Not your arrogance, but just the general cultural arrogance that, you know, we're so smart. We're not.
Is this always arrogance or is it trust?
Nah, I think it's arrogance because trust is earned, isn't it? Here's why I think it's arrogance.
Yeah, go on.
Then I'll let you push back, okay?
Okay.
I think it's arrogance because no one wants to ever believe that they're wrong. And the reason why is because that lacks safety. One of the shortcuts that are complex and our brains go through is what you call trust, but what it really is safety.
Okay, because if you had to actually go through and think about and try to debunk everything you came into contact with, you would never have time to do anything else. There's no safety in that, right? And so we take these shortcuts and go, probably true, right? This is probably true. Yeah. And the arrogance comes from this, that once that gets ingrained in the personality, you say, yeah, I believe that's probably true. To try and remove it represents a great threat, or comes across as a great threat. Okay. And so arrogance goes, no, I'm going to continue to believe that anyway. That's the arrogance.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
I can see how that would develop as a person gets older, but what I was talking about with trust was to do with what we're taught in school. Is that
like
you
grade
actually
school.
think that the teacher or does know what they're speaking about?
Yeah.
So it's a combination of trust and naivety that what you're being told is actually true.
Sure.
So at the point of being taught at school, you're just going to take it in unless you're a rebel, hunt yourself, and push back on things. But I can see what you're saying, that as a person builds their life upon what they have been taught, how they will resist, considerably resist any attempt to show that what they've been told isn't right. We've seen this with family members, haven't we? It's, to try to explain things in the way of what we've come to understand were deliberately chosen, with how things actually work, trying to put that across to parents or brothers and sisters. Resistance is an understatement. So I can understand where that arrogance develops. Not that that's the best word. That is then caused by a reluctance to not entertain what they've been thinking and understanding isn't quite right.
Also a loss of face aspect in there, isn't there? Right.
It is.
I mean, if you go through, 50 or 45 or 30 or 20 years of your life believing a certain thing, and someone comes along and says, well, it's not really like that. The first instinct is to argue. Sure it is, Of course it's like that. I have a track record of believing it, right? It's this loss of face.
Track record of believing it.
It's the loss of face, though, isn't it? Right? No one wants to be
exactly that.
Told that the way they've been thinking for 30, 40 years is not right, is it? Yeah. And where does that come from? Again, that's personality. So these are the kinds of really facing things.
Yeah.
Anyone who says, this work is easy peasy, he doesn't get it, because this work is difficult. It's difficult psychologically. It's difficult inside yourself, though. Nothing on the outside has to change. It will in time, but, I'll tell you one thing. One thing that really creeps me out. This is about a lot of Emin people. Do you know the glassy look that people get in their eyes, right? That kind of like stunned look.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That sort of look, right? And they just go through their entire lives from the moment they meet a work like this, on through, and it just gets worse over time, right? That's a defense mechanism. Did you know that? That doesn't mean development. I know it looks peaceful. I know it looks shiny, but it's a defense mechanism. It means that they have retreated so far inside that they're now hiding from all of these things that bump up against each other. Yeah. You know the look. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
that look can also be caused by people blindly accepting what they are taught, for want of a better word, without actually getting into it to make it more a part of their life, a part of their process.
Yeah, it's possible to just let this work fall on your personality only.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. In fact, I was guilty of that in my younger years. It was nothing but personality for me. Oh boy, could I give an Eamon lesson. Boy, could I, right? Stand up there with the best of them and, you know, roll a cigarette and limp around and, you know, the whole, everything that goes along with it, with
Yeah.
giving an Eamon lesson, but it was all personality. At
Yeah.
some point in time, you got to take that and you got to work it and you got to wring it out and you got to pull it apart and put it back together and put it over here and see if it still makes sense. Yeah, walk away from it for a while, come back to it, see if it's still there. All of these types of things you have to do with this work to make it real in yourself. Otherwise, it's going to go where everything else in the culture goes. Very, very important aspect of this work. Don't mix your work with your personality, please. Okay. We'll talk about A, B, and C influences and D and E influences in another lesson. But this is very, very important. Keep a sacred space for it.
Yeah.
A space where it's okay to be in the unknown, where it's okay to be put up against something in yourself, where you're going to test it and stretch it and prove it or disprove it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
This
any of
brings us-
you, real quick, then I'll let you. Okay, Mark? Any of you are welcome at any point in time to come to me and say, Pierce, I think you're wrong about this. And here's why. All right. And I'm not going to argue with you. I'll take it away and I'll stretch it. I mean, listen, if I've already worked it out, which most things that I'm going to say to you, I have. Yeah. If I've already worked it out, I'm going to offer what I have worked out. Right. But this is the kind of relationship that I want to have. This is not me rolling cigarettes and limping around and speaking in a British accent because, you know, I'm not British. Yeah. All right. Being something I'm not. You see, this is me coming from me to you. And hopefully I'm getting to you, not your personality. Okay. All right. Go, Mark. You had something to say.
Yeah. This then brings me back to what I was saying, is that it feels that there are some aspects of what a personality is that is still beneficial. The problem is it gets hijacked.
It's fuel. That's the only benefit of personality. It's just fuel.
Is it fuel or is it a portrayal and an address?
It's what it smells like when you cook it in the room.
Yeah.
What it's supposed to be used for in you is fuel. You're
Right.
supposed to take it apart and build yourself out of it, build your second self out of it.
Right.
Can I add something in, Pierce? Is that right?
Yeah, sure.
I wonder, is identity those preferred aspects of a personality that a person wants to specialize in?
Well, you're talking about like natural inclinations, are you?
The word identity. So
Yeah.
if someone has an identity that they don't really need, it's just say when you were younger, you identified as a, I don't know, in the States, did you have mods and rockers and punks
right.
and
Sure.
but not quite so extreme as that. You see people in ordinary walks of life that have an identity too.
Sure.
A sort of a polarization almost towards something.
Again, that just goes back to safety, though, right? Everyone wants a place to belong.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
Oh,
Right.
I'm a skater dude.
Yes. Yes.
I am prior military. Yeah.
Okay.
That's identity. It's a heavy identity. Hard one to get rid of that one.
Right.
Yeah. Sorts of
Okay.
things. Yeah, generally that ties into safety, though.
Okay.
You know, what is the world really that unsafe? Is this universe that unsafe? Do you realize how much of our time, how much of our day we spend trying to be safe
Mm.
about everything, right? Now, I'm not suggesting that you go drive 200 miles an hour, you know, or go bungee jumping or you know, those types of things. But look at all the little ways that we try and be safe. Identity is a perfect example, right? Perfect example of that, because that means I belong. I belong over here with this group, right? Safe, right? Bunch of skater dudes with mohawks and what? We all look alike. I was never that, unfortunately. Now, Mark, I want to come back to something that you said because it caught me.
Yeah.
There are no good and bad yes, there are useful. There are no good and bad aspects to personality, right? You had said something about like, oh, the anger aspect, or you know, there's certain things that aren't so good. It's not actually true.
No, I didn't say
Okay.
anger. I said arrogance.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that changes how you're gonna come at this now.
Right. Okay. Well, I could have misunderstood then.
Yeah.
Probably. Let's see.
I think the impact of both is the same, whether it's anger or arrogance. I think anger is going to go anti and attack whatever it's angry at. Arrogance is just going to ignore it. Yeah, it comes from safety. I think both. Well, I don't know if arrogance comes from safety. Anger can come from safety.
Arrogance comes from safety from the standpoint of trying to keep your mental constructs intact. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you start to question your fundamental beliefs, then that puts you in an unsafe place, doesn't it? Or it makes you feel unsafe.
Well, unsafe would be if you thought that whatever was being discussed was a risk to you. If you are convinced that you are superior, or so it's not so much safety as just saying, I'm not worried about it because I think this is nothing to worry about. I can crush this thing. So it's
okay.
Go ahead.
Let me stretch that though, because there's a really funny cartoon that I came across a while back, and it's got the sun and Mercury. Well, it's got all the planets in there, right? And they're all spheres. The sun's in the middle, just like you would imagine a solar system, except for the Earth is flat. And the caption underneath said, "Well, this is awkward." Right? Now, there are certainly a great number of people out there that believe that we live on a flat Earth. Yeah, and that's fine, right? They can think that. It's okay. They can think that all they want. But there's another interesting phenomenon of how angrily people argue with them. Yeah, if you just go onto like Quora or something like that, where people are talking about the flat Earth type of thing, you wouldn't believe the venom coming back at those folks. Yeah, about that. Now, why is that? It doesn't affect a person's safety, does it? Right? Mark, if you believe the Earth is flat, why do I need to try and convince you otherwise? I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying, why would I need to try and convince you otherwise? It doesn't affect me at all. You can believe whatever nonsense you want to believe, can't you? Right? And it doesn't change my reality.
Well, I think in this case, Mark, in this case, let's just follow this thread. Right? So Mark believed that the Earth is flat, and then if he's angry, that's a threat issue. If he's arrogant,
but why would I get angry?
No, not you, not about you, about Mark. Right? So Mark right. So Mark believes it's flat, and if he's getting angry, then he's perceiving a safety issue. But if he's getting arrogant, then I kind of see is like arrogance is also has a root in safety, but it's safety that Mark won't consider a threat, so he doesn't get angry about it because he's like, whatever, I don't care. Like like you were saying, Mark can believe whatever he wants. Same way Mark can say Pierce can believe whatever he wants, but I think he's stupid. Earth is flat, so I don't care. It's not a threat for me. So that way, it's like not a safety thing. Like that, I'm just looking at the other point of view and sort of where they are coming from. They're so convinced.
See, people go on the attack against these flat earthers, don't they? They go on the offensive and mock them and chide them and everything else, don't they? What difference does it make? Honestly, I mean, these are people in different countries.
Good point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Why-
and
why
so I
would
think for
you-
the people who are doing that, who are attacking, like in this case, if Pierce attacked Mark because he thought Mark was stupid for thinking the Earth is flat, Pierce is there's no reason to attack, and Pierce has some growth to achieve in being the better person and being the okay, you be in your thought, Mark. You be in your thought. You're a nice guy, except for this little thing. There's a little blind spot, and I'm gonna say you're okay. That's fine. That's for you to do. So that level of maturity is the growth opportunity for Pierce there. And I mean, Pierce is kind of going back to what you were saying earlier. Like, I would rephrase what you were saying about people knowing whatever we learn in school. And whatever we are
we used to learn that, didn't we?
yeah. So I don't think that's I forget the exact words you use, but I think you're saying that that's arrogance, or that's whatever. I forget the words you use, but the way I would rephrase it is there's opportunity for those who come from a beginning level of knowledge. There's opportunity for them to grow and learn something more. Because I think if you say something like it's arrogance, then that will create a safety issue in them, which will prevent them from growing, because they will say, oh, Pierce is saying I'm stupid, so I'm not going to listen to Pierce because he thinks he's saying I'm stupid. But this is the wrong wording, I think. Not wrong. There's a better wording, which is, hey, you have an opportunity to learn more than what your base level of knowledge is. Your base level of knowledge is about the physical and about some basic rules of physics. There is more than that. There's more to learn than that. And you don't have to, because you can just exist in what you have. So you're not arrogant from that point of view. You just have an opportunity to learn something new if you wish, which you have to wish, because otherwise you will not.
Yeah, and we can definitely, talk about these things. I wanted to bring it up because it's stuff that we have to face, right? And I'll tell you, it's so easy to become arrogant about this work because, right? I mean, yesterday, you all saw the actual Enneagram, the full Enneagram, didn't you?
Yeah.
Right? And now, I'm sure if you're not careful, there's a part of you that I'm not saying you have, but can become arrogant about that, because now every time you see an Enneagram, you may be tempted to want to complete it for that poor soul that doesn't know what the full Enneagram looks like, you see.
That is hubris. That is thinking that you know everything about Enneagram, and that will stop you from growing. I don't want to stop growing. I don't want to stop growing. So I don't know. Do you tell people that?
I'm just bringing these things to light because these are the types of things that we need to think about as we're on this type of journey. And, always be willing to question things, especially when it comes to yourself. Who cares, right? I mean, there are other people doing meetings similar to this right now, right? But they're talking about, I don't know, Jehovah or something. You understand? You see, I mean, people are doing this sort of thing. But you got to stretch. That's all I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, got to pull it apart and stretch. All right, let's get back on.
Something for the sake of people that could be scrolling through and didn't actually see the run up to the bit about flat Earth. Yeah, I don't believe that it's a flat Earth. No. Everybody knows it's bagel shaped and has got an hole in the middle.
Yeah, right. They've worked out the mathematics of the donut shaped Earth.
Yeah, it's a donut shape. Yeah. No, seriously. It obviously it's round.
Come again? Thank you.
Yeah. Obviously it is spherical, but I just wanted to put that in. But
not even spherical. If you want to get technical about it. It's an oblique example.
Yeah. I've got a good example of how these sort of debates go on, right? If ever I tease Sam that the lunar landings are faked because so many people say it's faked, right? And everybody knows that they were filmed right in Burbank Studios in California, right? Oh, the reaction that comes out of him because of it, yeah. You know, they were all putting it on and all this stuff. Well, how do you react? What is the level of sanity that you think I have when I say that?
Somewhere negative sanity.
Yeah, there is such an automatic pushback. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do teach you about that.
Yeah, right. Because what it really comes back to, at least for Americans, is American pride, right?
Yeah.
We're the first to get there.
We're
Trying to beat the Russians in getting to the moon, and we kicked moon rocks, and the first words spoken on the moon were grammatically incorrect.
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that something, right? You'd think you'd like practice your lines.
You'd have thought they would have prepared it.
Yeah. It's overwhelming. Anyway, Knight, you had a question about ego and personality. You're muted. You're muted, Knight.
There we go.
Yeah,
I've never explored the ego question, and I would imagine again it must be related closely to personality in some way.
Yeah, it's. I mean, break it down with the Alpha Curio bet. It's God, or
Yes,
sorry,
go E.
Yeah, go to God. What that means is this: really, the ego is the fuel to expand your soul, your essence. You see, that's what it is. It's the fuel. That's what gets you to God. Okay.
I see. Right.
There are three. Let's see. We're good on time. There are 3 levels of consciousness plus a 4th. Right. There is also 3 + 1 levels of being. They all equate to one another. We won't get into the person who is more predisposed to being a thinking person versus an emotional person versus a moving centered person, because that's all one level of being. You see, that's artificial. The goal of development is to not be so lopsided. Did you know that? That's the goal for development. What about Kabbalah? We'll talk about it next week, okay? The goal is to not be so lopsided. Right now, every one of you can look at yourselves and figure this one out. You're either predominantly, not saying 100%, but you're either predominantly a thinker, predominantly a doer, meaning like you have to physically express yourself, not doing in the esoteric sense, but physical, right? Or you're primarily an emotions. It's one of 3 ways that people tackle life, and in every case, a person who is not on a personal development journey predominates in one of those 3. Yeah, the way I'm constructed is up here, right? I'm a thinker. It doesn't make me better or worse than an emoter or a mover. It's just the brand of human I showed up as. Yeah, but the point is to be able to integrate those. And so I promised an exercise that I think is going to help with something. And that something that I'm hoping it helps with is the ability to sense yourself in the correct way. This ties into meditation, because I said earlier that I think most people are meditating wrong, right? They're meditating incorrectly. I shouldn't say wrong. It's not a judgment thing, but they either meditate with their mind, or they meditate with their emotions, or they meditate with their body. See, and people go through life. It's the same for everyone. 3 people can read the same book on meditation, and one will go and meditate with their body, the other one will go meditate with their mind, and the third will go and meditate with their emotions. See, the point is, when you do things, when you experience life, in order to get in touch with that aspect of yourself, I'm gonna teach you to touch your soul, to feel your soul for maybe the first time for some of you. It's a combination of those three things coming together. All right, so I'm going to give you a real quick practice. Follow along if you're willing. It's very easy to do. Regardless of whether you're an emoter, a mover, or a thinker, we tend to perceive ourselves as living up here, right? You kind of go through life of like, if you had to say, where's my consciousness? Well, it's kind of like around here, isn't it? Wouldn't you agree? I want you to take that sensation of consciousness and move it down to the center of your chest, into your soul area. All right. Begin to not only follow your breath, but think from there, feel from there, and experience from there. Have a physical sensation. That's your body part. That's that consciousness. This is why following your breath to that point is going to help. Think from there, from that position in yourself, and automatically you're going to emote from there because it's very close to where the emotional center also is. Now, this is something you can return to many, many times in the day. You don't have to close your eyes. It actually helps in the beginning. They call them the navel gazers, right? Ones that meditate like that. It helps in the beginning to actually kind of look down at that part of your chest right there in the middle, not staring at your navel, but you're staring here. To look down at that part as you experience it, because it gives you a little bit of a feedback. But in time, when it becomes something practiced for yourself, you can always bring all three centers of awareness to one point in you to experience that I. And let me tell you, it is absolutely tremendous. You're going to hit a point where you feel so much joy coming from that aspect of you, because it's the first time in most cases that all three of those entities of self, all three of those levels of consciousness actually merge together. I'm talking about the emotion. I should say those three centers, not levels of consciousness. Those three centers, the emotion, the thinking, and the physical, all center into one particular place. Your challenge, though, is to hold it, to continue to try to live from there, not from up here. Anytime you detect that you're sort of feel your consciousness somewhere around your head, try to bring it down into there. Now, Pleiades and I were talking about this the other day, and she said, I actually feel better when I go from here up into my head. That's the next stage, you see. That's those three coming up and joining with the spirit aspect, but it's different, right? Just practice the first for now. Is that clear? When you touch it, see, you'll get these kinds of visual sensations sometimes when you're doing an exercise like this. You'll almost feel like it's a bit impenetrable, like there is something there, but you can only tap the surface of it, like a sphere that you can't quite get into. Sort of a darkness is sometimes what you see. Persist at this. When you actually get into the point where you're penetrating that, and from the core of it, it's very much light. It fills your aura with light. It fills your being with light. You radiate. And you become iridescent in yourself. And the kind of joy, the kind of love, the kind of feelings that come from that are indescribable. I can only want you to experience it. To go into it and say, oh, it feels like this and it feels like that. It's not even possible. But you'll have that sensation of just this overwhelming joy. Now, of course, things will separate back out. You'll forget about it. As soon as you forget about it and remember to do the exercise, try to do it again. Bring yourself here. Try to live your life from here for now, if you can. Do your very best, all right? Take this very seriously, this exercise. Big step. If you can begin to live your life here instead of around here, then that begins to open up this path for you much more. All right? I see some of you actually began to feel that joy when I started talking about it. You know it's in there. Right, Hannah?
Yeah.
Yeah. You feel it in there, don't you?
Mm.
Okay, good. I'm gonna stop pitching for a bit. Not bitching, pitching, right? I'm going to stop pitching for a bit and let you all respond, dwell, ask questions, whatever you need to. We'll begin to wrap this up.
Pierce, I want to thread something, not for now, but for later conversation. I was doing some thinking around. I don't know if this is relevant. I'll bring it up anyway. You can decide if it's not. Some thinking around politics and how laws of creation apply to politics. And mostly, I did quite a bit of thinking here, and I'm going to just give you the punchline, and I can think through this. Punchline is that capitalism is actually following the laws of creation, and communism or socialism is not. And the way that I kind of thought to that, again, this is a long conversation. I did quite a bit of thinking, a few hours. So the line of thought here is that capitalism is a Ponzi scheme or an aggregator. Capitalism is consistently aggregating and concentrating wealth, power, whatever it is. Socialism, at its root, as its roots principle, believes that everybody is equal, which is chaos. That's not what creation is about. That's not what life is about. Life is not about having everybody equal. Life is about having aggregation and growth. So I don't know if you should discuss this, but would love to have this come up as a topic at some point.
Yeah.
Just understanding.
Sure, not in this lesson, but I would say that you could make a lot of headway in this line of thinking, or a lot of progress in this line of thinking, by putting the different styles of political ideologies along the Enneagram. Because what you'll find is that certain things support other things, like the inner lines of the Enneagram. You see, capitalism, I'm not going to give it away, but capitalism supports one of the other modalities that wouldn't exist unless there was capitalism. I'll say socialism, but that's not it, you see. Anyway, you can work it out this way. You can say, oh, right.
I'll do some more thinking.
You understand, huh? You understand?
Some more thinking. This is I maybe started to, this was, we were not having these calls for several months, and I was like, crap, what is going on? I need to do something on my own. So I started to go different paths which I thought were relevant to what was going on in my life and in the world in general. And this felt one of the lines to follow, saying, what's going on? What's going on in the world? What's going on? Like, what is this authoritarianism? And, what is this war? All that crap. Where is all this coming from? And I tried to think a little bit of macro, and I didn't get very far, as you've seen, but just something that
we'll keep going with it. Yeah, there's a lot of development to be had from exercises like that. You might look at it and go, oh, that's very cultural, but really, there's nothing outside of the laws. Mm-hmm. Even culture is not outside of the laws. It has to follow those. Got suddenly dark there.
No, the sun just came out. That's what happened.
Yeah, good old Seattle. Sitting,
yeah. So this is let me change. Now it'll be better.
Anyone else want to say something? Was today useful? Do you have something to do with it?
I thought I was excellent.
Yeah,
excellent. It makes perfect sense that if the soul has got 5 faces as standard issue, the way to locate consciousness in the soul would be through the centers. Yeah. And I can't believe I've never made that connection before.
Right.
So it's like a revelation. Yeah, it's very, very, very useful.
Yeah, good. And by the way, touching back on that Enneagram, do see that one of those pentagrams is the body, one is the soul, and one's the spirit. You see that, hopefully. Did you piece that together?
I didn't realize the spirit was 5-fold, Pierce.
It can't not be here.
Right. Okay. Yes, of course. In a
human
being.
It has to go
under the permission of where it comes from, right? It has to
Of course.
descend
Yeah.
into a pentagrammic structure. Otherwise, it wouldn't live in you. Couldn't live in
Right.
you, I should say. It'd be too refined.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I was thinking of the fleur de lis, which is a symbol of the spirit, threefold. But I see what you're saying. When it's under the governmentship of the planet in the human being, it has to be fivefold. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And by the way, the fleur de lis is not a three figure. What are you missing in the fleur de lis? You've got its form. Yes, I know you're tracing it. You're going 1, 2, 3, but it's a moving figure. Okay.
Right.
You've got its form with the 3. Then you've got its thrust, its direction, 4. Okay. It's a moving figure. It's moving. And
Yes.
5, the feminine aspect of the eddy currents forming around
Of
it.
course.
If you see a
Yeah,
fleur
of
de lis
course.
electrically, if you see some, if the essence or nature of a fleur de lis shows up, it is a 5 thing. It's not a 3 thing. It's got
Right.
a direction, a thrust, and eddies, and the mechanism it travels by.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Sometimes I wonder if we raise more questions than we answer in these. Maybe that's a good thing, I suppose. Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Pierce. Thank you.
Yeah. Check the
Thank you.
website. And your Saturday and
Think so.
Sunday. Saturday meetings are always open meetings. Sunday meetings are always the members only meetings. So okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds
Bye for now, everyone.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Pierce. Bye.
Where's mine? There it is.